Whether you're into comedians roasting each other's life choices or turning yesterday's bad decisions into today's funny stories, Amazon Music's got the most ad-free top podcasts, included with Prime. Download the Amazon Music app and get in on the joke, or go to amazon.com/ad-free-comedy. That's amazon.com/ad-free-comedy to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads.
There, standing over me, was what looked like a shadow figure in a hooded robe. And I remember gasping. I gasped. And this thing, it didn't disappear. It sucked back into the closet, like the end of Poltergeist.
Welcome to Tell Me a Ghost Story, the late night call-in podcast where we delve into the world of the supernatural and explore the eerie and unexplained. I'm your host, Michelle Newman. This podcast features true stories from our callers that will send shivers down your spine and leave you questioning the existence of the afterlife. So grab a cozy blanket, turn down the lights.
Hi, Michelle. This is Sophie from Los Angeles, and this is my ghost story. So when I was younger, my mom was looking for a house for us to move into with my little brother, and she was going down the street, and she was just drawn to this house, and we came in. And the first thing we did as kids is we ran to all the rooms except one room my brother would not go in. And we thought, because the house is old, maybe he just wasn't comfortable or whatever. So we just ignored it. We bought the house, moved in. And while we were here, my mom in that room put in like chairs, furnished the room. And there was this little rocking chair that we had when we were a kid. And my brother would keep saying to my mom,
"Mama, the man smells."
And my mom's like, what man are you talking about, little one? And he was just like, the man sitting in that chair smells. And my mom just thought, oh, he's a kid. It's, it's imaginary friends, because he would also say to us, there's a dog in the backyard, and we never saw the dog. So we just thought, oh, it's his imaginary friend. And then one day my mom was up in the morning and my brother said, there's a dog outside. And we looked outside and there was a coyote. And that's when we realized maybe it's not all just imagination. We did a little more research and we found out the guy who used to live in the house actually died in the room that my brother was too scared to go in, and that he would constantly say smells. This man, Sal, apparently would sit in this room and just hang out here. And so my brother as a kid would just be like, this guy smells all the time. And at that point on, we decided that maybe Sal is in the house with us at all times.
Thank you, Sophie, for your story. But listeners, I had to know. What did Sal smell like?
Like a very intense BO smell. And you know what? It's funny. It stayed with him his whole life, because to today, he is very much like worried about scents and making sure he always has deodorant on. So it stuck with him.
Next message.
My name is Brennan. This story comes from when I was living in Victoria, BC, which is on the west coast of Canada. There is a house near to where we live in Victoria, which has a history, we'll say. Very strange history, very unusual history, I'll be honest with you, a sinister history. Not of what happened in the house in terms of people, but in terms of a presence that appears to be in the house, which seems to prey on people with mental illness. The very first time I heard about the house, I drove past late at night with a friend of mine. We looked at the place, and instead of feeling chills like you usually do when you're telling ghost stories, I felt hot needles all around my neck. And that night, even though my wife had gone to bed early, she had not had a chance to hear the story I would tell her. We both dreamed of there being an intruder in the apartment that night. And then I had some friends come to town, and they wanted to see the place because I told them these stories. So I drove them past it in the middle of the day. It's a very boring suburban house. And when I showed my friends this house, they went, "Oh, well, that's boring," because it is. But again, that night, both of us dreamed of an intruder in the house. So that, I decided I'm not going to go to that near this place anymore. I just don't think it's a great place to hang out. But my wife's mother, who lives in England, she heard the stories, and when she came out at Christmas, she really wanted to see it. And I thought, I'm being dramatic. I'll show her from the other end of the street. So I did. And again, it's a very boring little bungalow. And she went, "Oh, well, it's this morning." And we went home. However, that night, it was 2 a.m. My wife was in bed. Her mother was asleep in the spare room. And I was sitting on the couch looking at my phone. The lights were off. The only illumination was coming from the lights on the Christmas tree. And my wife had recently cut her hair short. So when the figure stepped out of the hallway and startled me looking at my phone, I assumed it was her because it was fuzzy on top. It wasn't. Now, this is where my memory splits into two, because I was awake, I was looking at my phone. And then I saw the figure step out, and the next thing I know, I'm lying flat on my back on the couch, and there is a shadow figure in the corner of the room staring at me. It is sort of tilting its upper body side to side as if it's trying to figure something out. And I can't move. So I focused everything I could on moving, and I screamed, and I was able to move my arm, and then it was gone. I was awake, and I couldn't figure out when I'd gone to sleep. So I went to bed, and in the morning I said to my wife, "I'm really sorry, if I scared you with the screaming last night." And she said, "You didn't scream." And my wife is a light sleeper. And then I lived in Montreal for about 8 months in 2022 to 2023. And shortly after I got there, I was in extreme sort of mental and physical duress. I was in bad shape after the worst of the pandemic. And so I was just there trying to get well. And a friend of mine took me for a drive one night. And then they brought me back to my apartment. And my apartment was on the 28th floor in downtown. I was sharing a room with a couple other folks. And so my room was very bright. The lights of the city filled it up quite a bit. Even at night, it was quite bright. And I had a bad dream that night. I woke up, and when I opened my eyes, there standing over me was what looked like a shadow figure in a hooded robe. And I remember gasping. I gasped. And this thing, it didn't disappear. It sucked back into the closet, like the end of Poltergeist. But that was so far the last time I've seen those things.
Thank you for your story, Brennan. And if you want to hear more about his encounters with shadow people, check out the episode of Tell Me a Ghost Story called Accidental Exorcism. Next message.
This is Cindy, one of your favorite fans, and I really like your topics, and I wanted to tell you about the day my dad's ghostly greyhound dog named Sparky came back to say his final goodbye. He lived to be about 14 years old, and he was very close to the family. The first night, we were all downstairs in the basement doing our tours and everything, and we heard that familiar sound, click, 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 the sound of a dog's toenails walking across linoleum floor. It was always the same pattern, walking from the linoleum floor to the top of the stairs, and then they would cease. There was no barking. It was just as if Dad would leave the door open, but they never seemed to go down the steps. It quit when we got a new dog, and the dog felt jealous or something and didn't want to come back. I wonder if anybody else listening to this broadcast have had a ghostly experience from a former pet. Has your pet come back to visit you? Would you like to tell Michelle about it? I'm sure she'd love to hear your story.
Cindy, thank you. I know. Where are all my ghost animal callers? I would love to hear more of those stories.
Hi, my name is Jules, and I am in Santa Barbara, California, and I have a ghost story for you. My first interaction with a ghost was all the way back in 2001. I was living in Seattle, and I had a new boyfriend at the time, and we were super young, super in love, super broke, and so we wanted to do like a weekend getaway. And because we didn't have a lot of money, the easiest thing to do would be to drive across the border to Canada and to go to this youth hostel that we had heard of that was really cheap. This is before, iPhones and Instagrams. We had heard there was this youth hostel there for like $20 a night. It's called the Canby. And the area was like very indie rock, very cool, artsy scenes. We were like, great. And we went up, stayed at the Canby one night. It was definitely like creaky and old walls, not well kept up, super hip and cool. Had a great time. I decided to stay a second night, booked a room for the second night. Went to bed that night, and then in the middle of the night, I had to use the restrooms and walked down this incredibly long hallway. We were like the furthest away from the restroom. Go to the restroom, wash my hands, and I start, walking back down the super long hallway to our room. And granted, we had probably been like stoned most of the day, but by no means was I like wasted or on anything other than like just, I was a little bit tired. So I was like a little bit like groggy walking down the hallway. And as I'm walking down the hallway, I see just out of nowhere a man. And it's his side profile. And I clearly, and it's been how many, so many years, I clearly remember he had black pants on, and I could see his side profile. So I could see he had like a coat with like lapels. He had a top hat, and I think he had something in his hand, maybe like a small cane or something. And he was not quite solid, but he was not quite see-through. It was like a mix. And of course, I'm kind of walking down thinking I'm just seeing a person walking across from me, about 10 feet in front of me, into a door. I'm thinking, I didn't think that the outfit was just strange. I was like, whatever, walking into a door. And so when I got to that point of the hallway where the door would have been, you kind of subconsciously, when you walk past someone, they're going in their apartment building, you potentially hear them put down their keys, take their shoes off, put the lock on. So I was kind of like, I think subconsciously like looking for a sound that's a sign that someone had just gone through a door. And when I passed that part of the hallway where there would be a door there was no door there. It was just solid wall. So I had just seen someone walk through a wall. I didn't think much of it. I just kind of kept walking. I remember clearly unlocking the door to our room, shutting the door, sitting on the bed, and my eyes kind of like popped open. I was like, told my boyfriend, I was like, I just saw a ghost. And he was just like, what? And I told him everything that happened. And then that kind of started like a whole other kind of like just different things that happened to me in the years to come when it came to like seeing ghosts or feeling them or seeing things move. Because I think after that is when I just kind of like became open to it. And then kind of fast forward many, many years. Now I was living in New York, and it was 2008. And since that time, I'd always kind of like sensed things moving in, the room that I was in, or a lot of times I felt like the go-to for a ghost was like to turn on the bathroom light out of nowhere, or turn the TV on, or the one that constantly kept happening to me in hotels and like apartments that I live in is my sheets would get moved, like poked. Like I would kind of like be laying there, no one there, and I could see the sheets just poking a little bit. I don't know if ghosts like have the ability to move sheets, but anyway, so fast forward 2008, now I'm in New York. I'm in a new apartment, an old apartment, as always in New York. And I could definitely sense there was something in this apartment. But there was something like very different about this particular ghost. And it took me a long time to figure it out. And what I figured out was this being, this ghost, was very short. Because I could never sense them above my waist. They were always like low to the ground. And so I kind of made up in my mind that it was a child. I was like, because the thing about this ghost is it followed me around the apartment constantly. It's almost like I could hear their footsteps. And what kind of like, you know, the mirrors in the bathroom would open, the TV would turn on all the time to like children's shows. And, you know, they would follow me around. And so I got kind of annoyed with this particular ghost. And for some reason, my mind always thought it was a girl. So I had to kind of make rules for the girl or the child. I was like, okay, I know that you're here. You're not leaving. You don't seem to be like dangerous. You're trying to do anything weird to me. But I need to set some boundaries, and you can't come into my room. Like, you can't come into my room, and you can't come into the bathroom with me. Like, we're done. I need a little bit of space. So I like officially laid down the groundwork, and that hadn't, you know, the thing about that I learned over time with ghosts is if you lay down really clear boundaries, most of the time they will like abide to them. You know, now that I'm like a mom, I can't imagine a child ever listening to you. So maybe the ghost was a dog. At the end of the day, I think what ended up happening is I kind of like, for a while, I had this like, oh, I have a superpower. I can like sense things and I can see things and it kind of started to annoy me. So I made a conscious decision, like after that apartment experience in New York, that I was going to stop being open to it, stop trying to read the room, stop. Basically, with age, I just closed myself off because I was kind of tired of having the experiences. And really since then, I haven't had any, because with the little girl at the Brooklyn apartment, just like, you know, because it was just constant need for attention. And I'm someone who just likes to be alone sometimes. So, you know, 2008 to now, I haven't really had anything since. But for a period of time, I felt like I was just something in me. I had an openness.
Thank you, Jules, for sharing your story. It was also a great example of how to set boundaries with the living and the dead.
Ever notice how ads always pop up at the worst moments? When the killer's identity is about to be revealed. During that perfect meditation flow. On Amazon Music, we believe in keeping you in the moment. That's why we've got millions of ad-free podcast episodes, so you can stay completely immersed in every story, every reveal, every breath. Download the Amazon Music app and start listening to your favorite podcasts ad-free, included with Prime.
Hi, Michelle. It's Erica from San Diego again, calling back with another paranormal experience. So this actually happened when I lived in San Diego. I no longer do. At my mother's house. She still lives there to this day, and so do the rest of the people in this story. And this probably happened, I'd say 7 years ago now, give or take. There were times when I was living with my mom, my sister, and my 2 nephews, where I'd come home and my big black lab Rottweiler had already taken over my bed. So I loved my big girl so much. I would opt to sleep on the couch a lot of time. And I found it quite comfortable, to be honest. Never had a problem sleeping on it, but there was this one experience that I'll never forget, which makes me not ever want to sleep on a couch at my family's home again. So I was sleeping one night and laying on my back. And the layout of the house is semi-important. We have the living room in the very front of the house at the entrance of the home. And that led to the kitchen on the left side and then a hallway that led to the bedroom. Well, I was sleeping on the couch, and in the middle of the night, I just woke up. Not irregular of me to wake up in the middle of the night. So something woke me up, though. Typically, I need to use the restroom. That wasn't the case this time. As soon as I opened my eyes to wake up, I saw someone standing at the very entrance of the hallway, a tall, dark figure with what looked like a pointy hat. The only way I can describe this hat is it kind of looked like a Dick Tracy hat. I'm aging myself right now, but it was a very low but like pointed hat with the brim that went all the way around. I hate to say it, but I think it was Batman. Anyway, I woke up from my sleep, saw this big, tall, dark entity with a hat on, and immediately it started to dart down the hall at a fast pace. And my body went into that fight or flight mode that everyone talks about. I leapt up off the couch and chased this tall, dark, black figure down the hall. But when I got to the entrance of the hallway, it was gone. I went to each bedroom, my mom, my sisters and nephews, and my own, turned on the lights, didn't care if I woke up my family member, tried not to, but I just wanted to check and make sure there was nobody in our home. I really did think for a hot second that maybe there was an intruder. And I was surprised with my own reaction. Because after looking in each room and not seeing anything or any sign of someone being in our home, not even my dog barking, she didn't move. And she would have been the first one to alert me that there was someone in the home. I was in shock. I realized that wasn't an intruder that I saw, but I definitely saw something. I put two and two together after that and came to terms with the fact that I did, in fact, have an experience with Batman. So that's my story. Thank you. And I'll call back again soon with another story from Grandma's properties for you. Have a good one.
Thank you, Erica from San Diego. You're not the first person to call in with a sighting of the Hat Man. And I don't think you'll be the last. For those of you that don't know who or what the Hat Man is, well, none of us do. But it seems to be a shadow figure that multiple people have seen. There's several places on the internet where people have collected stories of their experiences with this entity. He's usually around 7 to 10 feet tall, wearing something that looks like a fedora hat, and watches you while you sleep. Have you ever seen the man in the hat?
Hi, Michelle. It's me, Nellie. It's been a long time. Well, here it goes. I'm going to tell you a ghost story. I would say this happened about 6 years ago. And at that time, my mother lived with us, my husband and I. My children, they were at their grandpa's. So it was just my mother and I sitting in the living room, and we were just talking. And my mother was sitting in the couch, and I was laying down on the carpet. just talking. We were just having a conversation. It started getting like into like paranormal. We were talking about my mom was basically talking about her paranormal events. And while she was talking about one of her experiences when she was a child, out of the blue, like we heard like someone walking towards the dining room. And out of my corner of my eye, I see like a dark shadow. It was like the size of a smaller person, like a child. And then I turn around to my mom and ask her, did you see that? And she was like, yeah, I heard that too. So, yeah, that's one of my experiences as an adult, and I have more to come. So, thanks.
Thank you, Nellie, for another great story.
Hi, Michelle. It's Maggie, your old friend from Everett, Washington, and I have a proper ghost story for you. I work in a little haunted building in town. It's an old office building that has been around for, a little over 100 years. It's got a lot of history. And at one point, there were 3 ghosts there. Now there's only 2. There was a very mean ghost in the basement. He was the ghost of a handyman that killed himself down there. But then when another handyman killed himself in the same basement, supposedly he took the mean ghost with him. And there's also a ghost of a little girl that's on the 3rd story who died in a fire by the elevator, and she's still there. Supposedly, like, late at night, you can hear her crying sometimes. But the main ghost, who's kind of on our floor, the 2nd floor, is a man in a suit. That's just what he's referred to as, the man in the suit. He's kind of a goofy spirit. He, very much likes to make himself known in like teasing ways, but he's not malicious. Like, I've never felt uncomfortable, but I've definitely felt being watched by something. Like, there's one day, I was opening the grocery store that I worked at. So I was opening the store and I was putting something away in the giant walk-in, and there are, these doors that lead out to the sales floor, and the doors have windows in them. And as I was going in and out of the walk-in, I just knew it in my soul that there was a man standing on the other side of the doors watching me. But every time I looked over my shoulder, nobody was there. But like, I knew there was somebody there. Like, you get that sensation. I've seen things fall off the shelves that shouldn't have fallen off the shelves. I was opening the deli one morning and I was just like dancing around to my music and just enjoying myself. And I got the sensation that there was somebody standing at the deli door, but I didn't want to look because I was kind of scared. And then the door slammed on me. That spooked me a little bit, but I kind of in my head justified it like, oh, maybe somebody was walking by and shut the door. But, it was like 4:30 in the morning. There was nobody there. Anyways, a few days back, it's about 4:45 in the morning. The only 2 people there are myself and my coworker, George. And he has a very distinct voice. So I know in my soul it wasn't him. I was standing by the bakery case, by the deli. He was in the, back of the store working on produce, which is his section. And to the left of me across the store, in what the section that we refer to as bulk, I heard a male voice, and I heard a male voice go, "Whoa!" And I heard this. Like, I heard it. I 1000% know. I heard a male voice yelp, like he had stubbed his toe or dropped something. I immediately thought that it was one of my coworkers. And then I was like, no, it's just George and I. And that was 1000% not his voice. And so I kind of took a step back and I looked around and I took a breath, and I didn't feel scared. I wasn't worried, but I walked over to produce and I was like, hey, George, did you just like hurt yourself and yelp or drop something or in any way make a noise. He was like, oh, no, that wasn't me. And I was like, okay, cool. I just heard a man yell out loud over in Bulk. And he went, well, we're the only ones here. And I said, I know, because it's 4:45 in the morning. He asked me if I wanted him to do a perimeter check, which is so sweet. You know, he's like a 6-year-old New York hippie. And he was like, oh, do you want me to go walk around and make sure we're alone? I'm like, no, I trust that we're alone. I just think I heard the ghost. He was like, oh, yep, that'll happen. And he walked away. And so, yeah, that's just another in a long line of lists of stories that all of my coworkers and I have about the man in the suit who likes to, you know, poke around the grocery store and kind of bother us all. And but he's not a bother. He's very pleasant, seems very polite. Maybe he stubbed his toe. Maybe he was startled by a bag of flour. I don't know. But so, yeah, that's my little ghost story. Thanks so much. I'll call you the next time something happens.
Thank you, Maggie, for your call. I look forward to hearing more about your ghost coworkers. That's all we have this week, folks. Do you have a ghost story? Call 701-484-2666. That's 701-484-2666. Or go to tellmeaghoststory.com and leave your story there. Thank you to all the callers who left messages this week. And as always, I'm your host, Michelle Newman, signing off. See you next week.
Macabina.